Since the rise of the human species, we have fantasized about flying through the skies like a bird, to be that weightless and to see the world from a wider lens. But it really is the freedom that we all crave associated with flying, right? With the advancement of technology, we can fly in ways that don't use a conventional airplane, ways that are exciting and unique. They can be considered extreme sports. Extreme sports is a broad term to describe any action or adventure sport that includes a high dosage of risk, height, speed, natural challenges, and physical struggle. Most extreme sports are considered as an alternative to mainstream sports with their adrenaline-rushing thrills. What are some of these flying-like extreme sports? Well, let's look at 6 of the most exciting ways to fly. Number 6. Skydiving. Despite its reputation as a modern extreme activity, skydiving has really been around since the final years of the 18th century, when the first parachute jump took place. Skydiving entails jumping out of a plane or off of a mountain at a high enough altitude to freefall for 30 to 180 seconds before deploying a parachute and floating gently to the ground. Since its inception in 1797, the sport has seen remarkable technological advancements that have made it a global phenomenon. The fear that you won't be able to breathe when skydiving is a prevalent myth. Thankfully, it is incorrect. Skydiving allows for normal breathing even at speeds of 186 miles per hour. Phew, thank God. The safety of anyone participating in the airborne sport of skydiving must always come first. While it's understandable to be wary about skydiving, statistics show that in the United States, it's really one of the safest extreme sports, with far fewer fatalities per participant than, say, vehicle accidents. Since the noise of the wind is greater than any human's voice, communicating with other skydivers is impossible. However, you can still reach out to your service provider. Parachute, AAD, automatic activation device, jumpsuit, altimeter, goggles, and helmet are all necessary pieces of skydiving gear, understandably. We aren't actually birds. Number 5. Hang gliding. The sport of hang gliding involves flying in a small, unpowered aircraft that can be easily carried by the pilot. In order to get airborne, it is common practice to leap off of a cliff or hill. Pioneers of practical flight created hang gliders. Before his death in a gliding accident in 1896, Otto Lienthal of Germany had logged thousands of flying hours beginning in 1891. He made available both designs and kits for his gliders. In 1896, Augustus Herring and Octave Chanute worked together to launch a biplane hang glider from Indiana sand dunes at Lake Michigan's southern shore. The pilot of these early aircraft swung his hips and legs to control, roll, and shifted his weight left and right to affect pitch while he hung from parallel bars beneath the wings. All that work to get us a new sport. Hats off to him. Building something new is challenging, but worth the effort when many can enjoy it, just like a growing channel. Post the efforts, at the close of the 1960s, modern hang gliding was born. Delta-shaped wings, modified from kite designs created by Francis Rogallo and his wife Gertrude, were popular among California enthusiasts in the early 1960s, allowing them to glide along coastal dunes. The kites created a stir because NASA was considering buying them to retrieve spacecraft. In Sydney, Australia, John Dickinson added a swing seat to a Rogallo wing, thereby creating the first modern hang glider. Modern hang gliders weigh between 45 and 90 pounds and are constructed from aircraft aluminum or carbon fiber, stainless steel cable, and Dacron, the same material used in sailboat sails. Gliders cruise at speeds between 20 and 30 miles per hour, but can reach speeds of more than 80 miles per hour. Number 4. Paragliding. The sport of paragliding has grown in popularity over the past several decades to draw thousands of competitors from all over the world. Paragliders aren't limited to the Alps, despite the fact that they are the most well-known paragliding location. Paragliding is a sport and hobby involving the flight of paragliders, which are lightweight, free-flying glider aircraft that are launched from the ground using a foot launch. The pilot is hung below a cloth wing and either sits in a harness or rests supine in a cocoon-like pod. Suspension lines, the pressure of air entering the wing through the leading edge vents, and the aerodynamic forces of air flowing over the exterior all work together to keep the wing in its intended form. Without an engine, paraglider flights can last for hours and cover hundreds of kilometers. However, 1 to 2 hour flights reaching tens of kilometers are more common. The pilot can gain altitude by using sources of lift, typically reaching heights of several thousand meters. From stall to top speed, paragliders can go between 12 and 47 miles per hour. Number 3. Glider plane. Have you ever pondered the definition of a glider plane? In contrast to conventional aircraft, gliders rely only on the air's reaction to their lifting surfaces for propulsion. They usually use wind or other atmospheric phenomena to provide lift, while certain designs may employ engines to go airborne, known as motor gliders. The name glider refers to a wide variety of aircraft, from big motor gliders and hang gliders to paper airplanes, all of which are employed mostly for enjoyment, most notably in competition gliding. One alternative name for a glider is a sailplane. The glider plane's fuselage, skin, wings, control surfaces, and landing gear are all vital components. Because of their limited size and weight capacities, gliders can only transport the one or two individuals for whom they were designed. Maybe except paper airplanes, although we are sure you could always try. No harm, no foul, right? If the pilot wants to conserve space in the cockpit, he or she will need to sit slouched with legs outstretched. In order to reduce drag, gliders, like other aircraft, are built with a skin that is as smooth as possible and without rivets or seams like those found on standard metal planes. Many contemporary glider makers choose the use of fiberglass and carbon fiber due to their low drag. A glider plane's larger wingspan is one of the most obvious distinctions from other types of aircraft. In comparison to conventional aircraft wings, glider wings are substantially longer, slimmer, and more elongated. Glider wings are extremely long and thin, thus they generate a lot of lift while experiencing relatively little drag. With a stall speed of 40.5 knots and a maximum speed of 135 knots, the usual speed range is 42 to 92 knots. Number 2. Motor glider. In the aviation world, a motor glider is a fixed-wing aircraft that may be flown with or without the assistance of an engine. It is a fixed-wing aerodyne fitted with the means of propulsion that is capable of sustained soaring flight without thrust from the MOP, as defined by the FAI Gliding Commission Sporting Code. Sir John Carden proposed the idea of a retractable, occasional, or auxiliary motor in 1935. This became a part of the Carden-Baines Auxiliary, which made its maiden flight on August 8th of that year. The booted glider eventually got an electric motor. A propeller which may be fixed, feathered, or retractable is standard equipment on most motor gliders. Some manufacturers, however, have released motor gliders driven by jet engines. These engines are designed specifically for use as sustainers, meaning they are meant to keep the glider in the air rather than to launch it. How quickly can a glider travel? The typical cruising speed for a glider is between 40 and 60 knots. This is their sweet spot, when they can cover the most ground with the least amount of altitude loss. With a range of up to 450 nautical miles while under power, most have fuel tanks that can contain between 50 and 100 liters of fuel. Number 1. Wingsuit. When a base jumper dons a wingsuit, the sport is called wingsuit flying. A wingsuit is a type of jumpsuit that has cloth between the legs and under the arms to help the jumper flap freely in the air. Aerial pilots have been using wingsuits to extend their time in the air since the early 20th century. Base jumpers and skydivers have taken to using this as a method to spice up their jumps in recent years. Wingsuit flight presents a number of risks. Crashing into something while in the air is the most prevalent cause of significant injury or death. Parachute failures and other jumpers present additional dangers. Would you try this scary sport? Flying in a wingsuit is a thrilling adventure that has attracted individuals from all over the world, despite the inherent dangers involved. It is an option to think about if you are seeking excitement. You should make sure you're set up for success before you dive in. The cost of wingsuit flying is dependent on a number of factors, such as the type of wingsuit used and the material it is manufactured from, the cost of lessons, and the cost of travel to the best sites for wingsuit flying. It's true that renting a wingsuit and learning to fly it can be pricey, but many individuals find the experience to be thrilling and exhilarating enough to justify the investment. Average speeds for wingsuit pilots can reach up to 120 miles per hour, but they need to make regular adjustments to their body position to keep going that fast. They risk losing altitude if their speed drops even slightly. They have a top speed of about 200 miles per hour when airborne. In 2015, Fred Fugan and Vince Ruffett flew for 12.5 miles, setting a new world record for longest wingsuit flight. Maybe your wife or kids are something you really care about, so taking such risks would be a big no in the family. But maybe they'll enjoy a cruise. To know more about some spectacular vacations you could potentially take, watch our video about 10 insanely huge cruise ships. Maybe it can make up for missing out on these extreme sports that mimic flying. We'll see you in our next video, and thanks for watching.